What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. I am glad you're here. So today we are going to be rebuilding Blue for the third time. Actually, no, the second time. So this was my first 1911 from T-Sauce, and it really kind of sparked my whole channel, this gun. And as you guys know, I kind of just got bored with it because I had a pile of 1911s laying around. And anyway, I just thought, you know what? Let's just rebuild this gun, have some fun with it. And then I cold blued it, and it looked great. And everything came out nice. And now, you know, I've got more 1911s. And yet again, Blue just kind of sits in this spot of like, I don't want to carry it. And it just is kind of boring. So we're going to rebuild it again, and really for a purpose. And the first purpose is, this was my Remington Rand clone. This is the T-Sauce Historical or Armed Services 1911. And basically the difference between this and what Blue was is it has a standard ejection port. It comes with a Type E hammer, and the finish is Parkerized. That is really the only difference. And this one used to be set up as the Remington Rand clone, and it was sporting these awesome grips from one of my wonderful YouTube subscribers here, Chris. But after the Colt drama, and basically the Colt being decommissioned, I wanted sort of another pistol that feels like that to be in stock. You know, standard ejection port, kind of the bone-ish grips, you know, flat, smooth mainspring housing, medium trigger, all the things that I like, right? So what I did is I ordered a second one of these pistols, the T-Sauce Armed Services, the Rand clones. That's on the way. And then it is going to get these grips, because I really do love having a Remington Rand clone. I love that build. And then this one I have turned into basically the field version of the Colt. You know, one that doesn't frag itself and fall apart and all those cool things. It's really nice. And it's set up very, very similarly. It has the same trigger, except black anodized. It has a flat mainspring housing. I stole these grips off of Blue just because, you know, these are sort of that bone look and feel, but they're durable, and I'm not worried about, you know, carrying them and all those good things. And so, yeah, it's a really classic looking pistol, very solid setup. And man, I've got this thing tuned so perfectly. I mean, everything is crispy. I mean, yeah, dude, like, I can't say the weight, but that is superb. It's not too light, not too heavy. It's just super crisp, easy to get accurate shots with. So I got that tuned, got the extractor tuned. The flat mainspring housing, I actually went with a Wilson Combat because the quote-unquote bluing on this is frankly more Parkerized, and you can see it matches the Parkerizing on this pistol a lot better, whereas the Ed Browns, they are actually legit blued mainspring housings. Now, I will say, warning here, big warning, if you plan on getting a Wilson Combat mainspring housing, be prepared to spend a couple hours fitting it. These require a lot of fitting to work in a T-Sauce, whereas an Ed Brown, significantly less work. So just a heads up there. But overall, though, this pistol, I've really got it tuned nice, man. It is a solid heater. And so, unfortunately, it kind of renders Blue obsolete, right? Now it's just a more delicate version of this pistol, and that feels kind of useless. So basically, here's what we're going to do with the with Blue. First thing is we are going to rust blue this pistol. So the cold blue is really just there to be pretty. It's not functional really at all. I mean, it holds up okay. A lot of people think like, oh, it's garbage, it's crap and all that. And guys, like, I've carried this thing outside the waistband. It's been in the truck with me. Like, I've carried it. I've shot it. It's not that fragile. Everybody thinks it's like, you know, you can scrape it off with your fingernails or something. Don't get me wrong. It's very thin, and it's awful to try to concealed carry in Florida. But for pretty much anything else, cold blue actually works just fine. But I want to do something that's more uniform. I'm hoping that it's going to look better across the frame and the slide. And then also I do want something slightly more durable than this because basically one day I put this gun away and I grabbed it like this to put it in the safe, and I had something on my hands, And you can see well, maybe you can see there's some rust right there, and it's the bad kind, the kind that leaves pits on both sides. So the cold blue is just not doing enough to protect this gun. And when you get into like surface rust, where it's just a little bit of brown and then it wipes off, that's okay. But when it starts to actually pit the steel, that is very bad. And now your pistol's just eating itself, right? So we're going to rust blue it. We'll document that. That'll be a lot of fun. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to put back in a arched mainspring housing, a short trigger, and we're going to go with these full checkered diamond grips that were originally on my Remington Rand clone. So it's going to be a really classic looking kind of old school pistol, very basic, but I think it'll make it a little bit more usable. It'll be something that's, a little bit different. Now, with this new Remington Rand clone I have coming, they're going to be very similar because, they're both going to have arched mainspring housings and all that good stuff. But I think the difference will be this one will kind of look more classic, more of like a old school civilian model. And then the Remington Rand clone that's coming is going to have a Type E hammer, which I'm actually going to leave in it this time. This one has wide spur, so there will be differences. And also, I hand filed and serrated this front sight on blue. So they'll be different. But anyway, those are the plans for blue. We're going to start sort of deconstructing blue, doing some fitting before we actually get to the cold blue portion. And just make sure, okay, does everything work? Does it function before we go refinish things, right? That's a really important question we need to ask. So here we go. Let's get started. All right, so right now we're function testing. I have put in the short trigger, which comes Parkerized from this guy that used to be the Remington Rand clone, and then the Colt stock mainspring housing, which is sort of a bead blasted blue. We'll probably refinish that. So yeah, just going to function test here. Okay. So everything seems to be working. Yeah, trigger's good enough fit, not terrible. All right, so without any tuning of any springs or anything, like literally just dropping in the Colt mainspring housing, it fits really well. I mean, perfectly actually. It's working good. The trigger, a little bit of slop in there, mostly left and right, but we'll allow it. That's kind of what it's going to look like right there. And it's just a classic old pistol, right? So, yeah, function testing, everything works great. I may do a little bit of fitting work on this mainspring housing to allow the grip safety to pop out a little more and engage this a little bit better. But overall, I'm really happy with the fit on everything. And, yeah, the gun feels proper. So that's step one. So one small change to the plan here. I actually realized the old mainspring housing off of the Remington Rand clone, that's a T-sauce part. So that means I don't have to do any fitting for the grip safety. So now that is perfect. No fitting required. So we're going to go with that one, and we'll rust blue that as well. And here we are. So, from the last cut in the previous section of the video to now was 3 weeks. This has been a pretty long form video. But, I took my time with this build and really wanted to hone in the process on the blue here. And so there she is. The bluing came out really good. Now, I'm going to roll in pictures right now because, this artificial light, I have some natural light here, but this LED light just does a terrible job of showcasing just how beautiful this gun turned out. And so, we're going to talk through it, but first I just want to, show you, man, here's how it came out. and that is a proper rust blue job. Now, lots of trials between 3 weeks ago and now, which is, why it took so long, frankly. And we'll talk about those. But before we get going here, I did just want to say a couple things. First of all, this is not going to be a rust blue tutorial. I'm not ready to do that yet because I'm still sort of refining my own process. It's got to be something that's repeatable for me, that I understand what's going to happen, and I've got systems set up, and I'm a pretty analytical guy, so I'm not ready to do a video on that yet, but that will happen. So just stand by on that. I've got to do this a few more times before I'm comfortable talking about it. I did want to just show you, here's what she looks like, man. Now, I didn't intend to have this gun turn out this way, but my friend Jolly made a great point. He said, man, that looks like an interwar A1. And I thought, holy crap, you're right, man. I haven't thought about an interwar gun in eons. But he's absolutely right. For those who aren't familiar with what that means, basically, in between the two big wars, right, World War I and World War II, there's a period where Colt was still making guns and doing things, right? And you had this really interesting era of 1911s that I think are really slept on because they're fabulous looking guns. And basically what happened was in the 20s, you had the 1911 A1 program do its thing, right? They came out with some of these updates that you see here on this gun. And, that A1 program didn't just stop there. They kept kind of doing things a little bit differently as the years went on. And when you get to like 1930 up to like 33, I think that's, don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the time frame when you see guns that look like this were around. Basically, they were doing A1 guns, but they had some really specific features. So first of all, the most notable was they were blued, and beautifully blued. And I'll roll in a picture here of what those looked like. And these are called interwar A1s. So they were blued. They had the old school pre-war hammer, which was kind of cool. It was a carryover. They had checkered, not serrated mainspring housings. Same with the slide stop or slide release, whichever you prefer. And they had full checkered walnut grips. And this was just a really kind of unique period. Again, they're kind of slept on. Now, I will say, if you want to do a Longmire 1911 build, that's what his gun was. Now, in that show, there's 3 or 4 different guns, prop guns they use, and they change over the seasons just a little. If you're really paying attention, a good majority of them actually have a lowered ejection port in the show. So if you want to be true to the show, you could actually use this type of gun and get dead on to the show. But in the show, that's what he has, is an interwar 1911 because it's blued, checkered mainspring housing, slide release, and, it's a blued gun. Now, of course, with him, he uses those awesome stag grips. But anyway, so that's kind of how this gun turned out. Again, my friend Jolly kind of was like, dude, that looks like an interwar. And I was like, you're absolutely right. It does. And I wasn't aiming at that, but boy, accidentally kind of nailed it. So kind of rolling back, though, that is the first thing. This is not a tutorial. Second of all, I did want to just say, the way to kind of approach this topic, because there's going to be a lot of people that are going to try to be really empirical. And it's going to be like, well, this is science, it's chemistry, it's physics, and you can just, you do this and you always get this result. And that's just not true. One of the things, I believe this is sort of an art, okay? And one of the things in art is that you can't just plug in data and get the same result. Part of the process, part of the end result is the person. And this is so clearly illustrated in, say, food, right? You can go to a restaurant, you have a really great meal, you get the recipe, you go home and you try to cook it, and it's just not the same. Well, why is that? It's because the person. There's a touch, there's an intuition, there's something that person does to what they're doing that really makes it completely unique and almost unrepeatable. And I think it's the same thing when it comes to bluing. Can you plug in all the same processes and information and get close? Yeah, but I'm just not one of these people that goes, no, it's going to be the same every time, because it's not. Not only that, you have the variability of different types of steels, different environments, temperatures, your formulas might be a little bit different, your times. There's so many things that are going to go into what this ends up looking like. So all of the you should have done this, you should have done that. Look, I just kind of discard those comments because I think at the end of the day, you start out with what somebody else did, right? You look at what they did, and then you just have to try it. And then you're going to come up with a process that makes sense to you, that has a result you're after. And that's a whole nother thing, right? Like, even just the result. Like, a lot of people would look at this and go, it's not blued enough because it's not black, right? Well, I didn't want a black gun. I wanted this. This is actually what I was going after, which is like an actual, like, blue, beautiful blue gun that pops in the sun and everything. This is my favorite kind of blue. I don't like the super deep black as much as I do this. So, this is a very individualistic thing, I think. And there's no one way to blue a gun. I mean, just with rust bluing, there's probably 10 different ways to do it. So basically, yes, we did a rust blue on this gun. Now, technically, this is like the fourth try, kind of, technically. I'll explain that in a minute. But essentially, I started out with some household chemicals: hydrogen peroxide, distilled white vinegar, and non-iodized salt. Again, when I do the video later on, I'll talk about the ratios and everything, but I really like this recipe because I've seen it get good results with other people, and also it's cheap. These are household chemicals that pretty much everybody has on hand, so it's really easy to do this. I did have to buy kerosene and distilled water, but everything else I had, so I don't even know that I even spent $30 on this project. Very affordable process, and again, as long as you do everything right, the results are great. So our first attempt was basically, I just wanted to feel it out, right? It's been a long time since I've rust blued, and I've really never rust blued a whole gun, and I've never rust blued a modern steel gun. Everything's always been like old stuff, right? And that's a very different thing when you use old metals and that are a lot softer versus these heavily forged modern steels. They're going to just behave differently. And so first time around was pretty sloppy. I didn't have a process set up. I was messing with temperatures and timing and all these things. And, you'll see from some of the pictures here, it wasn't horrific. It wasn't great, but, just depends on your taste, really. A lot of people were like, oh man, that's perfect, because I did post it on Instagram. But for me, I was like, well, that's not really what I'm looking for. So I started over. Now that I kind of understood, okay, that's how this feels, and that's how it reacts, and all these things. So I restarted. I sanded everything down, and I got really specific. So I used the same brand of 800 grit sandpaper. I sanded everything the same amount of strokes with the same pressure as best I could, because it's by hand. I mean, literally that detailed. Like, I wanted it to be uniform, very uniform, as much as I can get it. Then I went to the degreasing stage, which went, just fine. I use Purple Power degreaser, stuff you buy on Amazon. Let it sit for 30 minutes, washed it off with hot water. And then we went into the actual rust blue. And some things that I started doing differently was increasing the heat. That's one of the first things I changed, was the boil that I did on the first round was just not as high. I didn't really know what to do, right? People give temperatures and whatnot, but man, some of the temperature variations that I've seen between people varies by like 30, 40 degrees. So, it's one of those things where you can't say this is the right way and this is the right way, because both of those guys got good results. So again, you have to play with it yourself and test it out. So I was erring on the side of high temp boil. So I started out by boiling everything first, get everything really hot, take it out, and it would air dry pretty much instantly because it was so hot, and then apply the rusting agent. Now, the second time around, I wasn't able to film anything because, man, you got to be switched on. You got to have a very, very calculated process. You got to monitor things. So for me, I had 4 stations. I have my post-boiled stage, where everything's sort of just come out of the water and it's dry and hot. I have my rust agent application stage, where you apply it, now it's rusting. You have your boil stage, where that post-rust product is now going into the pot to boil. And then you have your post-boil carding stage where you're carding that steel off with steel wool, or in my case, a Dremel with a wire brush. I used that for some spots. And rinse and repeat, right? So, and I have multiple parts at multiple stages. So the whole time for about 3 hours, I'm working and everything's just in a rotation. And the second go around, I was much more calculated. Things were timed. It was a bit of an orchestration just to do it the way I wanted to do it, but I could see that it was coming out much better. The next thing that I changed, which made a huge difference, was how I finished the project. So basically this time I soaked it in kerosene for a couple days versus the original time I just went straight to soaking it in oil. The kerosene soak is the pro move. Like that's a must for me from now on, because first of all, you need to stop the rusting process. You just subjected this steel to a lot of stuff, right? There's a lot of stuff going on chemically. And so you need to stop that rusting process, but you also need to pull out all of those salts that you just added, any impurities. You need to get rid of all the water that's in there in the steel, and that is best executed by pure Cerakote soak, pure kerosene soak. Once I got done with the kerosene, it went and soaked for 24 hours in REM oil. Now, I got to say, that was the best the gun looked that I've ever done. I mean, it was a beautiful baby blue. You can see from the pictures there. It was like, dude, that's great. I mean, it's a little light, but still nice, right? I was going for something just a little darker, but that was pretty. And, you know, as I expected, over the next few days, the gun's going to change. Like, it's going to start to settle, and it may even take a month or two before the bluing really becomes what it's going to be. And so what I started to notice was under light, it was starting to brown a little bit, which to a light degree, that's normal. You're going to wipe off and you're going to be getting sort of some of that oxide is still going to be popping out of the pistol. That's normal. But this was a little more than I wanted. So I decided to reboil the pistol. Basically, that is to, again, change the red oxide to black oxide, which converts to what we know as blue. And really, if you didn't know, that's what rust bluing is. You're essentially rusting the pistol, which creates brown, red, orange rust, red oxide. You boil it in distilled water. It converts the red to black oxide, which then, after carding or scrubbing with steel wool, it is now, you've got a protective finish on there that looks pretty nice. So I reboiled the pistol and put it in kerosene for another day, and then let it soak in REM oil again. Now, that definitely stopped the rusting that I was seeing. But the unfortunate thing is it sort of diminished the color a little bit. It did rob some of the luster that I had from that original or my second attempt. But what I did to follow it up, instead of starting all over again, because I wasn't about to do that, what I did is I took the gun apart again and just wiped it off. I didn't degrease it. I just really wiped it clean, and I heated it up with a hairdryer or a heat gun. Can't say hairdryer. That's not manly, right? Heated it up, and this time I used the gentle cold blue from Birchwood Casey, the Perma Blue. Now, Perma Blue, which is what this gun used to be completely, it was just a straight cold blued pistol. It does okay for like maybe an outside the waistband carry gun, but it's very delicate and it just doesn't last, right? It's not very protective at all. And so, and really that's not what it's meant for. Perma Blue and even Super Blue, in my opinion, are meant to really be something that goes on top of an existing blue. It sort of brings the luster back from an older blued gun. And so to really bring the luster back out that I originally had on this gun, basically, again, I cleaned it, I heated it up pretty warm with a hairdryer, and I applied the cold blue, and then I let it just dry and sort of crust over. So I'm kind of repeating the rust blue process in a really gentle way, because again, we're using Perma Blue. This is a very gentle agent. So once that dried out, I took my quadruple-aught steel wool and I buffed it really hard, and I was not gentle. Like, I was actually trying to hog on it and really get that stuff off of there, that oxide. I gotta say, that was the way to finish this pistol because it popped. It brought the luster back. It brought the shine back. Now, some of you might be worried, well, it's only cold blue, so it's not very tough. Well, that's not true. Now it bonded with the existing blue really nicely. In fact, I took some leather and just stropped underneath one of the grips really hard to see if, like, okay, is this going to just rub off? Guys, it's a lot more durable than you would think. So the perma blue on top of the existing rust blue, and done right, heated, carded really well with some steel wool, man, that's a beautiful way to finish the pistol. And you can see the luster is rich. It looks really, really nice. And here's the beautiful thing too. As this gun ages, you can just keep doing that, right? If it starts to wear out, you can heat it up. There's nothing wrong with reboiling and or just you can rust blue it again if you want to. So yeah, that's the way I finished this gun, is just literally finishing it with some cold blue. That absolutely just, man, it brought the depth, it brought the luster. And so that brought us to where it is now. It is a beautiful, beautiful gun, man. Is it perfect? No. But it is it's a beautiful rust blue job. It has that interwar vibe. It looks old school for sure. And it was done for maybe $30. She's reborn and looking better than ever. And so now what am I going to do with it? I'm going to shoot it. I'm going to, I won't conceal carry it because I'm not going to destroy this finish, but I will certainly be using this pistol. It's not going to be a safe queen. It's going to get shot. It's going to get carried outside the waistband. And I really look forward to, seeing how she wears. And of course, I'll document it. I'll update you guys. But overall, man, that's just hard to beat. That's so cool. All right. Let me know what you guys think. Hope you enjoyed it. We will see you on the next one.